and welcome. I am Mary Grace. This is the Mary Grace Show, and we have a special interview coming to you live today here on the Mary Grace Show with our friend Chad Caton. And I don't think you've ever been on the show. This is a
Mm.
first, even though we've been kind of running in the same circles for quite a long time. So it's an honor to have you on. Unfortunately, the circumstances around this are not the best, and
Right.
that's what we're going to talk about today. On the 17th of March, Chad was swatted, and we're going to explain what that is. We're going to talk about what's going on in the conservative movement with this weaponization of law enforcement against conservatives. So tell us just what happened and what it means. A lot of people, I think, still aren't familiar with the term. I think some people in law enforcement aren't familiar with the term, and they don't know what's going on. So fill us in.
So swatting is essentially a hoax that somebody calls in to law enforcement 911 and makes up a story about somebody's house or who's in it. And then from there, they subsequently come in and it's usually egregious, like somebody's bleeding. There is a gunman. My instance is they called and said they were me. They said that they were Chad Caton and that I was hiding. And there was armed gunmen in my house. Come quickly. So they're already setting the cops up when they show up that this is a live situation where lives are in danger. So of course the officers are already anxiety driven, getting ready to go to this dangerous call as they're reading it on their or getting it from dispatch. So about 3 o'clock in the morning, on the 17th, it was Monday morning, but Sunday night. My wife and I were rattled out of bed with what sounded like somebody backing their truck up into my front door, just constantly banging, 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 banging. So of course I jump up. I grab my sidearm that I have in proximity to the bed, um, and then I kind of stop and I look around and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. My dog's going nuts. My wife's jumped out of bed, and then I saw the lights coming through the windows in different rooms, and I said, "SWAT, we're being swatted." Now, let me go backwards a little bit because Friday, there was quite a few swattings of my friends: Gunther Engelman, Cat Turd, Sean Farash, all from X. And I
Mhm.
called them all and I checked on them, like, "How are you guys doing? This
Yeah,
is terrible."
yeah.
A- and Friday night, I had a discussion with my wife over dinner, and I said, "I don't know if we're going to get swatted, but it seems like this is a thing, and that they're
Mhm.
attacking our circle for some reason. So if we do get swatted, I think we should talk about what we should do if that happens." So I explained it to her
Mhm.
and told her she needs to take Diesel, our dog, and put him in the bathroom, because what people don't realize is that everybody's tensed up, and if they kick in the door, Diesel's running to the door, they're going to shoot my dog. It's
Yeah,
happened
yeah.
a bunch of times. And no, of course I don't want that. So I told
Wow.
her, put him in the bathroom, and then don't worry about the officers. I'm going to go engage with the officers. And I'd rather her not necessarily be there, because if somebody's got an itchy finger, whatever, I don't know. Because
Mhm.
essentially this is attempted murder, by
Yeah,
proxy of the police.
yeah,
So
yeah.
um once I realized that I was being swatted, and I told my wife, she started to getting Diesel, putting him in the bathroom. And then I essentially started walking out into my living room, and the minute I did, the glass door behind me, right there, as soon as I got there, it lit up, and they started yelling in the backyard to put my hands up and all of this. I mean, through my back door. I wasn't expecting it because I was hearing everything from my front door.
Yeah.
Um, the rest of it, it seemed like there was lights in every window that we had at that point, and I could see the
Wow.
light coming through the front door where the officers were banging on the door. After I had an alarm go off on my front door because they banged on it so hard, and then I stopped and put my hands up and faced the back door, and I finally heard him say, "Go to the front door." Very mute, I couldn't really mute. I couldn't really hear
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
but I heard him say, "Go to the front door, keep your hands up." And the front door's yelling, the back door's yelling. So I just kept my hands up, walked to the front door, I was able to turn off the alarm on my front door, and I showed my hands through the glass, and then I opened the door, put my hands out the door, and there was a guy on each side of the little walkway up to my house, using the building to stabilize their ARs or M4s, whatever they have,
Yeah.
with shining the light on their flashlights on me
Yeah.
and telling me to walk out and keep
And
my
they
hands
don't
up.
know, let me just I wanna stop here. They don't know at this point that you're the homeowner.
No,
They
no,
because
they did start asking me my name as
they
I was
think
walking
that
out.
so the call that they got allegedly from you, the homeowner,
Right.
was that you were, like, trapped in your home by other gun gunmen.
God bitten. Right.
And so they're assuming that whoever is on the ground floor or moving around could be armed and dangerous. And this is
Absolutely.
okay, and this is where the danger and the terror of swatting comes in because the officers are going blind into a situation they've trained for, but they don't have x-ray vision and they don't know the players involved. All they know is that there's a hot situation that they're walking into. So this is what I want listeners to understand. And when you hear that somebody has been swatted, there are different scenarios that are presented to the officers. This one in your case was that you had been in a home invasion,
Right.
and that you were allegedly calling. Other swatting incidents are that, there is like a murder suicide, or that like a third party calls and says, "This individual is holed up in their bathroom with his wife and kids, and he's, hurting everybody and threatening to kill himself." Like, there's all manner of scenarios, that are presented on the 911 call. I
Right.
wanted to just set the stage, because again, this is not a familiar scenario. Hopefully, it will never happen
Right.
to most of our audience. Ha
Right.
but if you have a voice, I mean, it's something I'm thinking about, right? Um, Hopefully, it never happens here, but we want to get this story out, especially for people who are just getting up to speed on this and maybe have heard the word, that this is what we're dealing with here. They don't know. I mean, there's a chance that somebody on the force could be familiar with you, the
Right.
homeowner, and say, "Okay, I know this guy," but still, it's dark. Everybody's on high adrenaline and it's the middle of the night, and here you are walking out your front door, and you got 2 guys sentried, and a lot of guns and a lot of flashlights pointed at you, and you're probably in your pajamas.
Yeah, I was in my boxers. My
Okay.
wife was in her pajamas. And as they drew me out, once I got past the two officers with the weapons and the one that was talking, um, they put me against my garage and handcuffed me in my driveway. Um, And from this point, they're asking me, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name's Chad Caton." I said, "This is happening all over the country.
Mhm.
They are swatting political pundits. They're, people involved in conservative
Yeah.
politics." And I let them know, and they're like, "Okay, okay." And of course, I'm pretty upset. And
Yeah.
um, then I they said, "Who else is in the house?" I said, "My wife is still in the house. She's putting my dog in the bathroom, and I only have one dog." And they said, "There's nobody else in the house." I said, "No." And the guy in the back was telling my wife to go to the front because she had come out at this point. And I'll never forget it, Mary Kate, because I was sitting there
Yeah.
looking basically down the rifle of one of the officers. And when my wife came out the door head first, like scared, I'm sitting there watching a law enforcement officer train his weapon on my wife's head or body. I mean, in my eyes, it's a weapon pointed at my wife's face. Um,
Yeah.
and it just this ilk came across me, and I just kept saying to him in a small monotone voice, not yelling, "Please don't shoot my wife. Please don't shoot my wife. Please don't shoot my wife."
Yeah.
And he finally got mad at me. He said, "I'm not going to shoot your wife or, or your dog," and he wanted me to shut up. But at the same time, You're pointing a
Yeah,
weapon,
that's your
shaking.
job. I mean, that's your primary responsibility in life, right?
Well, well, yeah, and I'm watching him. I'm watching him shake. Like, he's nervous. This is a high tense
Yeah,
situation,
yeah,
and I am trained. I was a Navy CB. I was a firefighter. I'm a Second Amendment guy. I am well trained in weapons, and anybody will tell you, a shaky gunman is a dangerous gunman. And I'm
right.
looking at him. He's a young guy. He's shaking, and that's okay. And I just needed to add to the fact that you're pointing a weapon at my wife, and
Yeah.
your anxiety. I need to let you know it's my wife. Don't nothing is There's no reason to ever pull the trigger in the current
Mhm.
situation you're in.
Right, right.
Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah, this is not a perpetrator in our home.
No,
Um,
and then
yeah.
they weren't talking to me a lot. They're like, okay, asking my name, just I think so that they knew that I was the caller. Um, And then after that, my wife came by me, and they did not put her in handcuffs because I think they started figuring it out, which
Mhm.
is, great. That makes me happier. That my
Yeah.
wife's not standing in our driveway in her pajamas, handcuffed for the neighbors.
Mhm.
Um, and then they lined up, like you see on TV. They put their hands on each other's shoulder, and they cleared my house. And they knew that Diesel was in our master bathroom, and they left that, and then said, "Do you want to go get your dog?" After they handcuffed me, I went inside, got Diesel, who was fine and just nervous, scared. And then
Yeah,
they cleared that bathroom, and then Diesel went in the front yard with the rest of the officers, and it de-escalated from there. But um,
yeah.
it this is a new weapon by the left, where they want to be cowards and up the game. And this just goes to show you that this isn't about politics. This is
Mhm.
about a mental illness and ideology, where they don't care about my life and 14 other conservatives that were swatted all within a week.
Mhm.
um, any
Mhm.
one of us could have been shot. Our dogs could have been shot, or God forbid, excuse me, officers could have been shot. Because if
Yeah.
somebody's kicking my front door, I'm honest. I've said it before. My training tells me I need to grab my weapon, and I'm not going to wait for them to come through the front door.
Mhm.
If you're kicking in my door and I believe you're here to kill me, I'm going to empty a magazine into that front door, so that either one, run away, or you are limit or I eliminate the threat.
Right.
So it's really not. It's not okay for the police either, because if I would have came around that corner with a gun in my hand, having not thought about the swatting, which I probably would have had a gun in my hand,
Mhm.
that officer in the back window, right, or the back door right here, very well could have shot me,
Yeah.
because I had a gun in my hand. And if you remember, when they called in, they said that there's armed gunmen in the house,
Right.
and that Chad Caton's hiding.
Right,
Um,
exactly, yeah, and so that's what I was explaining, to listeners that, the law enforcement is limited to what they know from the 911 call.
yeah,
And they don't have photos of all the people, and even if they do, it's dark.
right.
And they're shining their light, through a sliding glass window or whatever. So it's a really it's a very potentially volatile situation. And you said there were 15 total that have been swatted to date. Uh
15 total that I'm aware of,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And we, all of us that have been swatted on Twitter, are communicating with one another, sharing evidence.
Mhm.
Because subsequently afterwards, they the swatting group that has been swatting at us all sends us pizzas, and the pizza started coming around 6 o'clock at night, and they all have delivery instructions that have nothing to do with delivery. And it's their calling card to let us know that we're all being essentially hunted by the same group or person.
And this is the day, so this is the day following the
Oh, we've
night that you
yeah,
got
there's
swatted.
the 6 o'clock that day that I got swatted, pizzas came. I live in a gated community. I shut it down pretty quick. Plus, in my town, it's not that big, so we were able to tell them, one of the pizza driver delivery people is on X, and they like, "Oh my God, I've heard about this all over the country." And I said, "Yes." And so they shut that down with the Domino's, the Papa John's, the Pizza Huts,
Mhm.
and Other guys live in bigger towns, and they're still getting pizzas as of 2 days ago.
Wow. And the way people are I've seen comments where people are saying, "Well, all you have to do is track their credit card." But
They're not paid for it.
the pizzas are being sent COD, cash on delivery. I didn't
Right.
even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that. However, somebody is calling in these pizza orders, correct? Or sending them online or however they're doing it.
Hmm.
And we do have an FBI that is under the directorship now of Kash Patel, our friend Kash,
Yep.
and Dan Bongino, and we also have, Pam Bondi at DOJ. And so now we have people who are team freedom. Um, what has been your experience? Or first of all, has this been escalated to FBI, to justice, or is it being dealt with at the by local law enforcement? How is this being handled?
So FBI is cognizant of it. Cash and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi have all put out statements regarding the swatters, um, and and, and my local PD has a cyber crimes, and they're working that. I can't go into really what they're talking about because of
Sure.
what they're doing. But I've been assured, all of us in the swatting, those of us that have been swatted, that the president of the United States is taking this very seriously and is looking for resolution, to make these people or person an example, because this can't happen, and it's wrong. And we understand that the government and the FBI, DOJ, and HHS, Homeland Security, are all working in using the full weight of the government to figure out who these people are and bring them to justice.
And that's something that we haven't seen in quite some time,
No,
uh, because we've been the target of so-called justice, or as we like to say, just us.
sure.
And so you put out a tweet the other day about this, um, basically, indicating what you just said, which is what prompted me to reach out to you,
Mhm.
that you just said, "I'm hearing that, that this is being taken care of, and
Yep.
thank you, POTUS." So it
Absolutely,
is.
thanking the president of the United States. President of the United States heard about it,
Yeah.
and granted, we're all of us that have been swatted are in huge support of the president of the United States. I was on his Veterans for Trump coalition, and worked for a year solid, trying to get him
Yeah.
elected. So, and that being said, just like Cash Patel said, it doesn't matter who you are or what party you're with, or what you believe. Nobody should be swatted, and this needs to stop. And we've had some pretty awesome legislators that have come out and said that we need to look at protocol. We need to look at how this is dealt with. What can we do to alleviate this letter? Because see, I'm worried right now because they basically marked me in the 911 that I have been swatted, right? So,
Mhm.
and the call came from me, which it didn't. So what happens when I call and I need police to come and help me and my family? Does that mean? And as a firefighter, we used to have people that would call us all the time, and for medical, and we knew it was they had they're diabetic, or they had
Mhm.
angina and it's not a heart attack, or something like that. And when you get called a bunch of times, you may not be as quick, to get there. I don't know that that doesn't happen, but there's going to be since I've been listed as somebody that's been swatted, I know
Mhm.
that they're still going to show up, but what does that look like? So, am I going to be attacked later? Is that the idea of this?
Mhm.
I don't know. There's a lot to be put out there. We know that there are cells all over this country because of our porous border.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can't get to Cash. They can't get to Trump.
Mhm.
So why not get to a swath of conservatives that fight like hell on Twitter? I don't know, but these are the things that I
Exactly.
think of, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's not going to change anything, though. I mean, we're going to
Right.
continue fighting.
Exactly. I mean, and the whole thing that they're doing, it's fear, intimidation, just like
Terrorism.
they're trying to do with the Teslas, right?
Mhm.
It's terrorism. And It is, it is the to me, I don't see how this is any different, like what they're doing with the Teslas to car bombings in Ireland.
No,
Um, right? I mean, this is terrorist activity, and I think that it should be treated as such. I think that what they're doing with the swatting would fall into that category as well. And to me, like you say, they don't care. They don't care who they hurt. These are the people who will cry and moan about President Trump bombing Syria because of the supposed civilian casualties. And yet here we are, they're literally, like, throwing Molotov cocktails into cars that have civilians in them. And in many cases, most cases, they are targeting fellow Democrats because,
right,
let's face it, most Tesla drivers at this point are still Democrats. The people who are buying Teslas most recently, the conservatives, that's a really small number of Tesla owners, relatively speaking, around the country. And so if you drive up to a Tesla and decide to ram them or key their car or throw a Molotov cocktail in an open window, there's a good chance that it's a not only a civilian, but somebody from your own party. And they're completely missing that, not to mention when they make a swatting call, depending on the area you're in, they're putting innocent lives at risk, including law enforcement, some of whom could actually be on their side politically. Now, I don't know, a lot of law enforcement are, but the
sure.
whole idea is there. So there is, there really is no regard. They preach about a return to decency, the party of joy, all of these things. They're always standing on the moral high ground, but then they're just like burning everything down. So
Well, they are exactly who we said they are. I mean, this is fascism at its finest.
yeah,
They don't want me to have a voice on Twitter because
right.
Elon's made it affordable or available for us to
Yep.
actually have our say what we mean what we say. They can't censor
Yeah.
us anymore. So it's like taking a little kid toy away, right? We took Twitter away from them because of Elon, and now they're just losing their mind and pounding the floor and throwing a hissy fit to the point where they're so mentally deranged
Yeah.
that they're okay with the thought and possibly more than likely would celebrate the injury or death of me, my family, or
Mhm.
God forbid the
Yeah.
police officers that come to these swatting events.
Yeah.
These are sick people. We've called them sick for a long time. And I hope that we get
Yeah.
our perp walk. There's some of the biggest. I'm the smallest guy that was swatted out of the group. So I don't really know what that
Yeah.
means. Maybe I'm just that loud. I don't know, but either way, it's interesting to me when
Mhm.
you're put in a swath of conservative pundits like Caton and Gunther Engelman
Yeah.
and Owen Schroyer and Joe Pags. I mean, but nonetheless, it just goes to show that you know don't let terrorism win.
Right.
And I think it's important that we do in the swatted as we call ourselves. We've all talked, and Owen Shore has done a video saying that we're going to go out and keep talking about this. We want everybody in the country to
Yeah.
understand what swatting is
Yes.
and to have that aha moment if in fact they find themselves in a swatting situation, more than anything to protect the officers. Because in South Carolina, where I live, I have a castle law. I could absolutely empty my weapon into that door. I couldn't hear them say police. My alarm's going off. I can't hear anything. All I know is somebody's banging on my front door, sounding like they're trying to kick it in. I even asked the officers, I'm like, couldn't you just ring the doorbell? Anybody that wants to kill me probably is not going to ring the doorbell. That would have been a little bit easier way to wake up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, the way you banged on my door made me feel like I needed to protect my home. And luckily, there was people swatted prior to me because
Mhm.
I thought better of it and didn't bring my weapon with me.
Right. Well, and the other thing too is, it doesn't make sense to me, the approach that they took. If you have a homeowner who is saying is supposedly calling and saying, "I am hiding. I'm taking cover. We are in a home invasion situation. Wouldn't they want to be a little more stealthy? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know their
Well, there's two
protocol.
ways to look at it, and having been a former firefighter and having been on one of these scenes for medical, um, uh, I don't want to Monday morning quarterback our officers, right?
Yeah,
And out of 15 of us, nobody has been injured.
yeah,
A lot of people are scared and are dealing with that, and that sucks. But the off and a lot of this, there wasn't a whole lot of us that were actually pulled out of our house. A lot of them were able to stop it at their door just based
mhm.
on one of them was done at like 9 in the morning, and at 3 a.m. everybody's a little different, I guess. But
Yeah, yeah, it's different.
there were some that were worse than others, right? And we the way we were pulled out of our house, or I think Juanita
Mhm.
Broderick just went to her door and answered the door,
I
and they were
saw
like,
that. I
okay,
saw her video. She's like, "You guys."
right.
Yeah,
Juanita's great.
that's
Juanita,
so yeah.
she's the only female so far, that was
Okay.
specifically her and her grandson were. But I mean, there's an 83-year-old woman that you felt the need to swap. It just,
Yeah.
it's so dumb and cowardly and
Mhm.
pathetic. And people are like, well, why don't you guys be quiet so that they don't continue coming after you? And I'm like, because that's letting terrorism win, and
Yeah,
we're not
yeah,
going to. And
yeah,
between, as you can see, Cat Turd's not stopped, Gunther
yeah,
Engleman is not stopped. We're all sticking together in the
yeah,
swatted, and
yeah.
gonna do everything we can.
Well, I don't know if you know my story, but the way that I started podcasting was that I was on a ISIS kill list.
Mhm.
And so, when they told me that, the FBI, area director that I spoke to, his advice was to go quiet, go dark, get off social media. And then I just started thinking about my legacy, and my family history and my DAR ancestors and my, the revolutionary ancestors. And I thought, well, they were on a kill list
Right.
and they kept fighting. That's why we have a country. And
Mhm.
and so at that point I had a choice to make, and it was, I'm not actually gonna do that. I'm not gonna go quiet. I am going to go loud. And so that's how everybody listening today, that's how you got the Mary Grace show.
Right.
You can thank ISIS, because I was just minding my own business, and then that happened, and I thought, "Okay, well, I'm in good company." And, because most of our war fighters are on some kind of list like that, or multiple lists, and our ancestors, and so here we go. And that's how Mary Grace, came to be. So I get it. I totally get it. And, I mean, it's very interesting because, I was thinking about in the past 4 years since the January 6th, debacle. It was a very tense time for me, for anybody who was in DC, because you were living 24/7 around the clock, expecting that knock at the door.
Yep.
And now I think part of what they're doing now is that they wanna continue that. They wanna continue that, keeping people on edge, keeping them in fear, silencing them. But as you said, it's not gonna work because we have truth on our side, we have justice on our side finally, and we are on the side of right, of righteousness. And so we're not gonna do it, and I'm glad you're okay. And I hope that they can track down, these people. I really do, and I would like to see perp walks. We are seeing some arrests
Yep.
with the car thing. Some
Well,
guys.
that's because they're stupid and they don't realize that Teslas are surrounded with cameras. It's.
Right, yeah.
I keep telling Democrats, just stop being dumb and you're going to be okay. Your ideology and what you're doing and wanting to hurt people, and just, I mean, go watch your own videos. You people are losing your damn mind,
Yeah,
and you're going after cars that have 6 cameras around them. I mean,
yeah.
you really can't make this up.
I know, it's crazy, and, like, the guy, where was it? They were in, uh, was it, Missouri that they were at a resort and the guy keyed the car? Was it Missouri? Or I'm mixing there's so many, I'm mixing them up,
Right.
but the police came up to the guy and, he lied, he's like, "I don't know anything about it," and it's all on camera,
He's wearing the
right?
same pants, the orange
Yeah,
pants that he
like,
was wearing in it.
same outfit, you're like a fake hiker, and here you were like, you're a fake outdoorsman, and you're wearing all your, like, outdoor gear, and you were fishing in your pocket for your keys, it's all on the Tesla camera, and then you're lying straight to the officer, and I hope that they get the same treatment that General Flynn was given for supposedly lying to an agent. New Hampshire. Somebody thank you in the chat, they said, and, I hope they get that treatment because he lied right to the officer's face, and he could've remained silent, and he didn't, and so he implicated himself right there, and that's on him, and I hope they throw the book at him, and I hope that the people who are getting, um I hope when the time comes, everybody who's been, targeted by these crimes is going to press charges. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
because because this can't happen again. Chad, where can everybody find you? You're a former podcast host, also a former Navy CB, but now you are the national director for the Conservative Coalition, right?
I am the national field director of the Conservative Caucus, the oldest caucus in the United States, yeah.
Caucus. Okay.
And, ironically, 2 other of my state directors in Sean, Farash and Beardvet, Nebraska and Tennessee, were also swatted. So there's, somebody doesn't want, young blood in the taking over the conservative caucus, because they know that we are now funded and we have a machine behind us out of Washington that wants to maintain the MAGA movement, and
Mhm.
we're gonna fight like hell to keep it there. And I kudos to Jim Pfaff, the CEO, that he has had the wherewithal to bring actual fighters into this caucus and to make sure the GOP is going to have to play right in every one of the states, as I know them for a fact to be hunting MAGA in a lot of states, including mine, South Carolina. So now we're going to have an organization that's going to stand right over the top of them, and we're going to bring an army to all the things that are necessary to keep our
Good.
movement alive.
That's so good, yeah, and, I think, Data Republican did an analysis of the people who were
Mhm.
swatted, and she identified certain commonalities among the group of people being swatted, and I don't know if she came up with this one, but I think one of the commonalities, I think, is some kind of affiliation with General Flynn, right? That
I'm
seems
not familiar with that one, although I am
I don't
very
know if
close to
that was
General
on the
Flynn.
list, but that observationally, that seems to be, like, people who've interfaced and interacted with General Flynn because it's such a hardcore grassroots part of the coalition, right? Of the MAGA movement. So it doesn't surprise me. I I am gonna continue to pray for your safety.
Thank you.
No more pizzas. What are just some quick things like what uh we did first of all, you are on X. I think you're on Facebook too, right?
Let's just say X, because I can't do anything on Facebook until
Okay.
Zuckerberg actually becomes a libertarian or something along those lines. So I
Yeah.
can't do it. I'm fired up on Facebook is there. All my
Okay.
old videos are there. I'm just trying to keep that alive because it's kind of where I started
Yeah.
10
Yeah.
years ago. But X is where I do my work. And
Okay.
it's I'm fired up the number 2. So it's
Yes.
I'm fired up too.
Okay.
And we're that's primarily my social media where I do the posting.
Okay,
We're on
good.
TikTok and all that, but it's just it's mind numbing to me because I can't even say my name really, and I get lambasted or censored. So
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, we've been all about the activism now, and we still do our media, but and we
Good.
might have some new media coming out. But my podcast I mothballed so that I could get out there and get on the road and help President
Sure.
Trump get elected.
Sure, sure, I understand, yeah, and I actually I didn't even tag you on Facebook because like, there's certain
It's probably
people
smart.
yeah, I don't tag them. I don't tag them on YouTube, I don't tag them on Facebook, because I know, and I have a big following on Facebook for now, but it is disappointing because Zuckerberg, if you're listening, Mark, you lied. You're still fact checking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all the things that you said in your video, it hasn't come to pass. And you got to step up and do the right thing. That's what you got to do.
He won't.
You need to give free speech a voice. So but on X, at least we're getting there. We're getting there. And but
Well,
if
that's the big thing that we all connected is we all were very strong with Trump and we're all very
yeah,
supportive of Elon. So that's the real
yeah,
data, not so much General Flynn, but the real
yeah.
data is that's where we're at on X. So
Supportive of, yeah, and supportive of Elon, exactly. One thing too, like, hopefully most people listening are not in danger of being swatted, but in general, what would be some advice to anyone, if for any reason, if you know that you haven't committed a crime and something comes out of the blue where you have this type of scenario that you described, what are some basic steps that somebody might take to prevent a catastrophe in a
well,
situation like this?
we've learned some things, and one is don't call your sheriff necessarily specifically, because if they don't contact 911, nobody knows, right? So the word, if you are a podcaster or you're an influencer or whatever, contact your local 911 and let them know swattings are going on. I don't know that I'm going to be swatted, but I would like to for you to put a note next to my address, so if it comes up, they may be able to squash it by asking certain questions of the caller or things like that. And that's being proactive. If you know the sheriff, go ahead and let them know
Mhm.
the sheriff personally. But if you don't get it to the 911 operator, it gets lost. So
Mm.
if you find yourself in a situation where somebody's banging on your door, take a second and figure out what's going on. Don't GI Joe it, right? Make sure you're armed. And like I said, I was able to kind of figure it out. Like, why, if somebody's coming to kill me, why are they shining all these flashlights in my house? My house was
Right.
dark and there's flashlights going around everywhere. Use discernment, and at the same time, I would keep your weapon somewhere concealed by your side or something like that. Because again, if I would have turned the corner to this back door right here, I very well could have been shot. I'm right-handed. My weapon would have been facing him. I didn't know he was there. Just be very
Mm.
cognizant of it. And again, there's a difference between somebody burglarizing your house where they're kicking in the door, and then lighting your house up. So just
Yeah.
use discernment and think it through. Don't carry your gun. Don't take your phone. Owen Schroyer actually walked outside with his phone to film it.
That's Owen.
That's Owen for you, man.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
doesn't
he's
care
always
and
filming, always be filming.
always be filming. But keep everything out of your hands. That's something I told my wife. Don't bring your phone. Just I have cameras, but keep it out of
Mm.
your hands and do what the officers say. And don't make it hard on yourself. It's not a time for you to start yelling at the cops. It's a time for you to listen to the officers, get outside, de-escalate the situation, and then start the investigation and try to find whoever's doing this and aiding in the police.
Right.
I had people that were all over my social media saying cops don't have a right to do this, blah blah blah. Yes, they do. They did not kick in my door and raid my house. They didn't do any of that.
Mhm.
But they came here and did what their protocol told them to do in the
Right.
in the span of saving our lives based off of the call that was given. So
Right.
I
Right.
have no
Yeah.
ill will towards the police, except I think we can talk about protocol.
Mhm.
When you walk up to a house and you don't see any lights, you don't hear, and when you knocked on my door, my dog started barking. If there are armed gunmen, don't you think my dog would be losing his mind still? When you walk up,
Yeah.
I think there was a better way to wake me up. That's the only thing I can really say, because if I was, what if I decided to drink with my buddies that night and I woke up kind of loopy and I grabbed my gun? God
Mhm.
forbid. I mean, there's a thousand. Everybody wakes up differently. So,
Yeah.
and I hope we get to. I hope the swatters, all of us, get a chance to go to Capitol Hill and testify. I think this is something we need to speak on a national based on protocol
Mhm.
and technology. What technologies can we use to alleviate this from happening and putting not only just the officers but also the citizenry in this particular situation where they may be in a position to think that I have to protect my life and property,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
a really scary place to be.
Yeah, it is, and, you know, it's a fine line, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
especially as the the husband, father, protector of your family, that's what you're wired to do. That's your number one
absolutely.
responsibility. And, I live here with my dad. He's older and I'm responsible, right? And so it's always something to think about, and I think my first call when I get off of here is gonna be calling the 911 center and just saying, "Hey, here's the situation." And then contact people that I know that happen to be in law enforcement in the area, just to give a heads up. "Hey,
I've talked
this."
to people that have called their local 911 and they were thankful that they did it. Because
Yeah,
that's a terrible place for 911 to be too. Because
right.
they're getting a call, they're thinking that I got to send the right assets, all of these things. And for the people that I've talked to that have since called their 911 and
Mhm.
said that, look, I'm a conservative podcaster, I'm a this, I don't know if I'm going to get swatted, but I wanted a note next to my address because this is
Right.
happening across the country. And the people that they called were very appreciative of them calling and letting them know.
Yeah, and I think, so when you make the call, you literally just call 911, and do
Mhm.
you ask for, like, the
Well, no,
head of dispatch?
you call the non-emergent 911.
The
There's
non-emergent.
a
Oh,
yeah,
right, okay, that's what I was wondering, and then you just say,
there's always a
"Hey,
non-emergent, so you can call 911. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I have a situation, I wanna make sure that your dispatch understands what's going on here,"
And
basically.
more than
Okay.
likely, because we know that Cash and the FBI put out a memo of sorts to law enforcement across the country that this is happening. They're
Mhm,
investigating it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that information filtered from the chief or the captains to
mhm.
911 and their departments. I'm assuming they may or they have. So
If they've
by making that call is
communicated.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely something that I'm gonna do. That's the last thing we need, you know? It's the cats and dad. So,
Right.
yeah, we don't need any drama here. So thank you, Chad, for coming on. It's always you're always welcome on the show. It's good finally to have you on, and hopefully our next encounter will be with something that's a little more celebratory. Celebrating that you're okay for sure.
Right.
And this is consider this a PSA. Everybody who is listening today, please be aware of this. And I by now I think that all of the podcasters are most likely aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
But just in case, if there's somebody that you listen to frequently, maybe just shoot them an email and
Yeah.
send them this video. And please, as always, share this. If you are enjoying the content today, please remember to subscribe to the Mary Grace Show and to get on the email list. The best way to do that is to go to marygracemedia.com. You can jump right there on that QR code and go to the website. You can find all of our sponsors right there at marygracemedia.com as well. And we will be back tomorrow with another show. And we will also be back here on Saturday with one of your favorite people who I'm actually surprised has not got swatted. um, but we, I think, has been through some things like this before, it just hasn't been included in this round.
Right.
And we'll pray that they don't. So we will be back tomorrow. And thank you again, Chad, Thugzilla, Caton. Great to have you on the